We've recently, in the last couple of years, started using Fiverr, and this is a great resource for conceptual design. Now, I'm not saying use Fiverr, if you're ready to submit your final drawings to your county and you need to make sure everything is perfect. That's when an architect that's local that really understands your county's codes is really helpful. But Fiverr is great for those initial stages where you may not want to be paying an architect $200 to $300 an hour to create your conceptual design or $1,000 for some renderings. You can go to Fiverr and you can see here an example of a listing. This is someone that we actually use for design work right on Fiverr, and it's $80 to create a set of architectural drawings. Now, that might just be, a basic floor plan, maybe a couple elevations, but they do a lot of other things as well. We work with people on there for our renderings. Previously we would probably be at around $1,000 for a nice set of renderings for a container home. And now we can get it on Fiverr for probably around $250 to $300. Really nice rendering. So really a great resource, not just for design, but all kinds of things. Next, the biggest secret, right? So this is what I mentioned earlier is the biggest secret builders don't want you to know. So I was just talking to someone yesterday and I recommended them to join this workshop. I'm not sure if they're on here. And they basically called me and asked me, about a container home they're looking to do and said, well, could I work with you guys to basically do the rough-in, right? Can you guys like cut out the doors, cut out the windows, do the weld work, maybe some of the framing, maybe even some of the rough electrical and the exterior paint, just these initial type stages to a build process. And I was able to tell them like, yeah, we can definitely do that for you. Or if you check out tomorrow's workshop, you're going to learn how you can get that done for a lot less. And the way you do that is just how you can get your container from one of these major ports. It's also in these areas where there's a lot of fabrication shops, specifically related to containers. So a lot of these container vendors also have a division where they do container modifications. So a lot of these companies build container offices, maybe even some level of custom containers. Usually it's things in the industrial world, not as much in the residential side of things. But they have the proper skill set to really help you on your build. So what we'll typically do is we'll work with one of these companies. Sometimes it's the same company that we purchased the container from, and we'll work with them to actually do the first stages of the build out. Now, this may not work for every single project. You would need to make sure that your local building department, if you're doing this, say, as a permanent build that's going to be permitted, that some of the work can be done off site. So you might need to navigate through that. But more often than not, it is okay because you're not enclosing the structure. You're just doing the initial phases. And so what we'll do with these companies is they'll do all of our cutouts and reinforcements. So that means all the windows and doors get cut out. They all get reinforced. We'll have them paint the exterior of the container. We'll then have them do potentially they can do your interior framing because they're good at that. They do that all the time for container offices. And potentially they can do your rough electrical. A lot of times they don't really get involved in plumbing because they're not in that type of a field where they're doing a lot of plumbing for these types of units. And you could probably do your own HVAC, but that is really almost like the first 25% of your project that you can actually have outsourced. And if you're a DIYer, you definitely can do those stages, but then also just weigh the pros and cons of time. It may take you, if you're working on this as a side project, 3 months to do those stages, when that could be happening in the background as you're getting other things set up for your build. Now, how to save an extra 15% on materials. So for a lot of you, you might be in a city where the major option is a big box store like a Home Depot or a Lowe's. And we have nothing against working with Home Depot and with Lowe's. We get a lot of materials from there. What I would recommend is how you get your materials from there. So as you know, inside of those big box stores, there's usually a pro desk, right? It's an area where contractors work with, or people that maybe you're doing a large build, like you're building your own container home. You have an opportunity to work with the pro desk. And what you'd want to do is get all of your materials that you need from these stores, create a giant list of them, have it all organized that you can then present to them and show them, hey, I'm looking to order these specific materials. The total, from retail might be $7,500. It might be $15,000. It just depends on your build. But what they'll do is they'll go to bat for you and they'll get you a better price because you're doing this in bulk. Usually the minimum number is $1,500 in items. So as long as you're doing an order over $1,500, they can usually go to bat for you and get you, I'd say maybe 15% off. We've seen them do 30% off. And What we've also done, which was really helpful, is we create a material packet for a project before we need the materials. We would submit it to Lowe's for a quote. We'd submit it to Home Depot for a quote. And then what we would end up doing is whoever was less, we'd go back to the other person, right? So if Home Depot's was less, this is what happened. We went back to Lowe's and we said, hey, Lowe's, they beat your price by $1,500. And we want to do business with you. We like working with you. We have a good relationship with you, but we need you to be able to beat their price. Otherwise, we will have to go with Home Depot. And we were blown away with what Lowe's was willing to do to beat that price. And so I think that could be a really good way to do it. And you'll get a lot more than 15% off retail. I mean, you'll probably get 35, maybe even 40% if you really do that well. Now, a thing on the bottom I have there, just a pro tip, of course, there's specialty retailers as well. These include people that specialize in selling granite, marble, doors, windows, backsplash, tile, baseboards, flooring, trim. So that's an also a good approach, right? You do want to shop around. And so, for us, for example, we go to one vendor for our doors. We go to a separate vendor for our windows. And to be honest, like a Lowe's and a Home Depot can't touch our Windows vendors pricing. It's just super competitive because they're the actual manufacturer. So that's a good approach is look around. So, we get our flooring from a separate vendor. We get our steel from a separate vendor. So you do kind of want to make sure you're checking out all your resources and options in the area that you're at.